Right, FPL managers, welcome to this week's YouTube video. A video where I'm going to talk top transfer targets ahead of blank game week 26, primarily focusing around replacements for Darwin and Diogo Jota. Let's get into it. Right, so I want to start off this video by going through some of the replacements for Diogo Jota. It currently looks like he's going to be out for a number of months, so he's definitely someone that we're going to look to need to replace in our teams. I'll start off with this video by saying that I'm not going to talk through any of the obvious players. You don't need to bring stats up of these obvious players on the screen to sort of decide whether you're going to bring them in. But obviously, just have blank game week 29 in your mind when you bring them in, because obviously that could impact your number of players you're going to have in that week, or whether you need to play your free hit in that week as well. So it feels to me there are two teams that we need to focus on. One is Wolves, because they have a fantastic run of games coming up, and the other one is Villa, who also have a good run of game coming up, but crucially they play in blank game week 29, where Wolves is currently looking unlikely that they will get a fixture in game week 29. Not completely ruled out, but I would say that it's looking very unlikely that they will get a game. So going for Wolves is either leading you to have less players in game week 29 or playing your free hit in that game week. So the other team that we could look to bring in is look to bring players in from is West Ham, but their form really isn't looking good at the moment, so I don't really feel comfortable suggesting any of their players as things stand. If we see them improve when Paqueta comes back into the side, then we can open up that discussion again. We still have a few weeks before that blank game week in 29 where we can reassess those West Ham assets, but for me, I wouldn't be looking to bring any of those players in this week. So if you're looking at Wolves options, I think there are two main picks that are going to be between. That's going to be Hee-Chan Wang and Pedro Neto. Now, it doesn't feel like there's much between these players when you're looking at the data. However, that doesn't necessarily mean we will end up with an even result, as these 50-50 calls can sometimes yield big point swings, particularly when you're looking over a small finite number of game weeks. If you're going to wildcard in a few weeks, all those kind of things to weigh up. So I am a Wolves fan, so I have watched many hours of both of these players play, so I hope that I'm in a good place to judge who is the best player to go for out of Wang or Neto. So when you're looking at the data itself, it definitely feels like Wang is more goals and where Neto is more assists. So based on that, you would simply argue that Wang is the better player, because you're probably going to get more points, especially for midfielders, where the points difference between goals and assists is 2 points. However, it feels like Wang, in comparison to sort of Neto, it feels like Wang gets points in sort of spurts. You might get a couple of double digits, but then you might go a couple of games where he blanks. But it feels like Neto is a very consistent player. He rarely reaches big haul territory, but he kind of ticks along with assists nearly every week. So let's start off by focusing on Wang. A big plus point for Wang is that he's very likely to be on the penalties for Wolves. I would rate this likelihood to probably be at about 90%. There is a small chance that Pablo Sarabia could be on the penalties, as he does have a fantastic penalty record. He's got like 16 or 17 penalties with a 100% record Sarabia does in his career, where Wang's record is actually only 9 out of 11. Sarabia took the last penalty while Wang was at the Asia Cup, which is why there is some doubt that Sarabia could well take the penalty. My gut feeling is that it's around 90% likelihood still that it's going to be Wang, because Wang has took penalties when Sarabia has been on the pitch. Now, I actually did a bit of research on this. I actually reached out to Nathan Judah on Twitter, who is a Wolves reporter, and he agreed with my assessment as well. So obviously he watches a lot of Wolves, knows all the goings on, and he agreed that he feels that it's more than likely going to be Wang on the penalties, but still a chance that Sarabia could be on them. So just something to bear in mind, that don't be shocked if it is Sarabia when that penalty comes along, but it is very likely that it's going to be Wang. So it feels like there's lots of things positive going for Wang. But you know what? This is where I might actually shock you. I think I would actually go for Neto. Because one, when you look at his points bonus per match, returns per match, he's actually slightly higher than Wang. It does feel like actually the Neto, based on that, could be a better option. I watch a lot of these players play, and it almost feels like Neto is on an upward curve. He's in the confidence and form of his life at the moment. It just feels like a mega haul is coming for him. For a winger, he still gets plenty of touches in the box, which you can see in the heat map here. Find Wang probably does shade it just about on touches of the box, looking at that heat map, but Neto is definitely there and involved. He plays on the right wing more than not, does Neto, so that means he gets the opportunity to cut in on his left foot and take shots at a goal. I think we will see goals being added to his game more and more with the confidence and the form that he is in. So for that reason, just because I've watched a lot of these players, I follow them closely, I would actually go for Neto over Wang. But I say it could be very close call between the two. Next up, we are on to the Aston Villa assets. So a reminder that crucially, these are the players that will not blank in game week 29. They have got a confirmed fixture in game week 29. However, what we do need to contend with here is that one of these players here, Douglas Luiz, is a bit of a, let's face it, boring, low ceiling pick. And the other player is a player that rarely plays 90 minutes and I would only describe as mostly nailed, which is Bailey. So let's start off with the safe pick, which is Douglas Luiz. From the heat map, you can see how much of a deep line midfielder he is, but we do get the luxury of him being on the penalties. There's one stat that really actually interested me about Douglas Luiz when I was recording and researching for this video is that he's actually got 22 bonus points this season. That's the third highest midfielder for bonus points. I imagine because of the role that he is in that deeper line position that the number of tackles, number of passes completed that he makes actually leads to him getting bonus points quite often when he does get those returns because he's got all those sort of stats backing him up in that area and he's not just relying on the returns to get them. So that is something that was really interesting, which actually I mentioned him being a boring low ceiling pick does actually raise the ceiling of Douglas Luiz just that little bit. So for me, Luiz would be the safe pick to go for. Certainly a valid option, but it does worry me that a little bit that you're relying on the penalties a lot for the points of Douglas Luiz. Now, the other option that I've mentioned here in this graphic is going for Leon Bailey, who feels like he's broken into the team a bit recently. He started 7 of the last 8 games, and apparently the game he was benched more down to a bit of a knock anyway. So it feels like Bailey is mainly the first choice sort of right winger for Aston Villa at this time. So for me, Bailey just feels a bit more of a higher upside pick to Luiz. He's amassed 7 goals and 7 assists for Villa this season, and that is only from 12 starts. You can see from the heat map how much more of an attacking threat he is compared to Luiz. I think the player that you go for really depends on sort of how much your appetite for risk is really, because basically I think if you're sort of, you're lower down the ranks, you're chasing, and I think Bailey could actually be a really interesting differential to get you up the ranks with those higher upside potentials. But I think if I was sat sort of in the top 100k, happy with how things are going, I think I would go for Douglas Luiz. Now, my rank is currently about 180 odd K. I don't know what. I'm filming this during the sort of Liverpool and Luton games. I don't know where it will exactly end up. My target is always to get into the top 100k. I'm outside of that. So I might actually look for going for Bailey as we're sort of getting into the last third of the season, a sort of a different high upside pick to go for to bring in my team. It's definitely not the time to bring in loads of these kind of riskier players, but it might be the time to just dot in the odd one. So I think I will actually be bringing in Bailey for my Diogo Jota replacement because I don't really want to play my free hit in game week 29. I'm going to try and manage that situation with free transfers if I can. So lastly, let's look at the 2 main replacements I think there are for Darwin Núñez. It feels like it's time to sell Darwin Núñez with the impending blank game week coming up in 26. He's very likely to blank in game week 29. There's still uncertainty around his fitness. If he is carrying a bit of an injury, his minutes could be managed in the games that he does play too. So for the purpose of this bit of the video, I'm going to assume you already have Ollie Watkins. If you don't, I do believe that he is the number 1 replacement for Darwin Núñez if he's not already in your team. You'll have heard me talk about the Aston Villa players before and the fact they don't blank in game week 29. Have a good run of games too. He's the one that is most central out of all these players, I think, for bringing in for Darwin Núñez. But as I say, I'm going to assume you've got him. So the other 2 players that you need to be looking at would be Solanke and Toney for me. Now, we don't need to go into the goal records of these players too much because they are both very good in front of goal. However, what I think we need to sort of look at these players is the fixtures and how we get the best out of both of these players. Because I think there is a role for both of these players to play during the next few weeks. So, crucially, Solanke's got that double game week in 28. One of the best double game weeks you will see, home to Sheffield United and at home to Luton. So it does feel like Solanke is going to be, I'm going to say, essential in that game week. So I think this week, even though it's a poor entry point against Man City at home, I would be looking to bring Solanke in this week. We know that Man City can concede. Their defence is definitely penetrable. Many of us with Man City defenders in our FPL teams will certainly know about that already. And then I think the play will be after that double game week, because in game week 29, it's looking very likely that they are going to blank. That would be the week where you would bring in Ivan Toney because Toney plays Burnley away. So that just feels a natural place to make that swap in our FPL teams. So yeah, that's what I would do. I would bring in Solanke and then Toney later on for the blank game week in game week 29. So I hope you found this video useful. Thank you so much for watching. Drop a like, subscribe, and anything you want to discuss in the comments, get that in there too. Again, thank you for watching and good luck for the next game week.